Hello drone racers. Well, I finally did it. I broke the lizard. And I didn't break any of the major components. Here's what happened. See that right there? The antenna broke. The circularly polarized antenna. The Cloverleaf antenna snapped off the top. It's like it got pushed down here and snapped that right there off. So I'm gonna try and repair this in this video. I have plans for upgrades and changes to this anyway, but I want to fly it today. And in order to fly it today, the only way that's going to happen is if I can bend this back into shape. It's gotten a little whopper jawed, to use a technical term, and it's come unsoldered. So I'm going to try and solder that. I've never done this before, and I couldn't find a really good video for it. So this is going to be interesting. The first thing we've got to do is take off this top plate and get those out of the way. This would be easier to do if I took the props off, but I'm kind of in a hurry, so that's not going to happen. So I would love to take this out completely, but as I mentioned, I'm kind of in a hurry, and in order to do that, you have to unplug this cable, which isn't a big deal, but that cable is not going to fit through the spacing in the frame. The only way to get that out is going to be to loosen this frame, take these screws out here, pull this up completely and get it all out of the way. And I just don't want to do that right now. Instead, I'm just going to try and see if I can find a good spot to work on this and have enough room. So I think that'll work. I don't have the tools or anything to recheck the angles on this. I know these bottom plates are supposed to be flush. There we go. So now I can already see it's already back in a better shape just having pulled the center part open. So that center tab has no exposed metal. It's all shielding. So I'm gonna have to clean that up. Normally I would try and use my wire stripper and get that in there with the smallest piece and clean that off, but that is not gonna happen. There's no way I can get them in there. So I'm just gonna have to use a knife. This would not be the first time I've cut myself with an X-Acto knife, but I've always been pretty lucky. I almost wonder if I could just burn this off with my soldering iron, but we'll use that as the next test if this doesn't work. There, I see copper. I got a little exposed metal in there. Now I'm gonna get my soldering iron here, melt a little solder and just try and tin it a little bit if possible. There we go. I think that stuck to it. Get a little more. Now, if I can bend it into shape and get that to stick, we'll call it a win. There we go. Just went in with a big glob of solder and got it to connect. I'm going to do it again and try and get an even better connection. It did move the metal, so I have metal on metal contact, which is what I want. I don't really want to just have solder contact. There we go. I think that'll work. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it and then get some hot glue and stick that up in there and just glob the whole thing because it's not going to be super strong. So if that works, you will see this video. If it doesn't, you probably never will. So now I put this back on. I've heard a couple of people ask, like, what are these for? What's the purpose? And I'm pretty sure they're teeth for the lizard. I think that's the only purpose they serve. They don't actually do anything. They're just there because they look cool. Nothing wrong with that. So I've got all 4 of the screws in. They're loose, so I can get the camera adjusted now. I'm going to use the scientific method called about right there to get the angle right. That looks about right. So it did work a little bit when it was disconnected. The range was terrible, the breakups were terrible. So now we'll go see if it works better. So that seems to have worked, at least greatly improved the situation, but I'm not totally convinced that it's right. And because of my hack job here, I may have caused a lot of damage in the process. To find out, we're going to power this on. So what we're going to try and use is the VRD2 Pro goggles. One of the best things about these is they have a scanner built in. So we're going to actually just do a channel scan and see what the channels look like in this process. So we'll just go down to band scanner. I probably shouldn't be this close. I'm gonna actually move that off. So it's at least a little ways away. Here we go. So what this does is just scan through the bands to see what the frequencies are being used. And we should have probably just a little hill and then back down. And that actually doesn't look bad. And that's why you can't use a bunch of goggles together. You can't use channels side by side because the channels next to each other just don't work. So that actually looks pretty good. That's better than I expected. I was afraid we might have more problem than that. Now I'll notice the bottom line is actually pretty high across the board, so it is blasting out some frequencies, but it's not too bad. I've got a nice, pretty clean spike, better than I expected, that it has connected to, and it shows that the best frequency is 5760. I'm curious to see if that matches. Got the manual here. This is where this comes in. 5760 should be channel A2, which is exactly what it shows on the lights. Okay, well that's good. That does match up. I'm actually glad to see that that seems to be okay. I was nervous I might not be able to fly this around other people, but I don't think we'll have a problem. So last thing I really need to do is I'm gonna get a hot glue gun and just gloop the heck out of the inside of this just to give it a little more strength, because there's not a lot of connection on there. There's not a lot holding this together. The wire used to go through the top of it and get soldered on. That's no longer the case. It's literally just solder holding it together. So some hot glue will make it a lot stronger and last better. And then I think we are repaired and ready to fly. So if you found this useful, leave a like on the video and comment down below with what you would do to improve this situation. I actually have a complete replacement for this coming that will be tested very soon. So we'll see how that works. More on that later. But if you want to make sure you don't miss that, make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell icon is what it is at the moment. You know that YouTube keeps changing that. And you'll be notified when there's new things posted. And until next time, remember, even you can repair circularly polarized antennas. As long as it's easy. I did it. It works. Yay!